Well, the title of my lesson today is Happiness is Not Optional. And after I put that title out, I remembered back in ministerial school they said don't use a negative in your talk titles. But happiness is mandatory didn't quite work for me, so I'm still going to use it. You know, that's just who I am. So, just so you know. I found this little piece that I think is very poignant. It says, if you can be cheerful, ignoring aches and pains, if you can resist complaining, if you can eat the same food every day and be grateful for it, if you can understand when your loved ones are too busy to give you any time, if you can take criticism and blame without resentment, if you can face the world without lies and deceit, if you can conquer tension without medical help, if you can relax without liquor, if you can sleep without the aid of drugs, if you can honestly say that deep in your heart you have no prejudice against creed, color, religion, gender preference, or politics, then you have almost reached the same level of development as your dog. Kind of a sobering thought, isn't it? You know, when you realize what's important. You know, I was, Don actually sent me a little thing, you know, about God and dog. You know, dog is God spelled backwards, which many of you have probably seen that, and it's very sweet and it's very true. And I think we learn a lot when we begin to kind of let go of this frontal lobe stuff that shows up in our thinking reality and just sort of be with what it is that is in our life and around us. I was watching a documentary of Thomas Jefferson this past week, and he's kind of an interesting character. He fascinates me. You know, he's very enlightened in terms of a lot of his thinking and the way he showed up, and he also has his issues and so on and so forth. But we know Thomas Jefferson not just as our third president, but he's also the author of the Declaration of Independence, which is in one of our sacred documents in our country. And it's interesting that that document was penned by hand by him in 4 days. That he sequestered himself in a room and he literally wrote the words of that declaration in 4 days. And he set out, you know, it was sort of a divine process. He set out an intention behind the creation of this country, or the consciousness that shows up. And basically, he gave us one premise that we stand on, one piece of foundation that we stand on. And of course, we know that premise as all people are created equal. All people are created equal. That's the foundation of the consciousness of this place in which we live. That's the intention, that's the energy field. And then he shot forward and said there's 3 other things that we need to be aware of. And we are about the business of, and we have the right to life, we have the right to liberty, the freedom, and that shows up in a lot of different ways, and we have the right to pursue happiness. Now, that's a pretty nebulous thing, you know, the right to pursue happiness. It doesn't say we have the right to be happy, but it says we have the right to pursue happiness, whatever that might be for us. And in all of the documents of any of the countries in the world that have ever been created, that's probably the most nebulous piece of, or nebulous statement that really exists. And yet, I think it's one of the most powerful energy fields around which our consciousness unfolds in this country in which we live. Happiness is not optional in our country. If we live here, it's a part of our DNA. It's a part of what it is that we are about. It was put into our consciousness as a result of that creation and that experience. And so it's not optional. It's basic to our thinking and our consciousness and the pursuits that we go about in our daily life. How many of us pursue happiness? We all do. We all want to be happy. We all pursue it in all kinds of different ways, trying to create work environments that are happy, home lives that are happy experiences. You know, happiness is a big part of our experience. And yet it's one of the most difficult pursuits to measure because it can be fleeting. Because we can be happy in one moment and very unhappy the next. Just like that. We can lose that precious experience just because we hear one little thing, or something shifts, or something changes. So it's very ethereal, it's very hard to measure, it's personal to each one of us, and it's ever elusive. And sometimes we're happy and we don't even know it. You know the song, if you're happy and you know it, clap your hands? Well, if you're happy and you don't know it, then don't clap your hands, because you won't know, right? But we move around and we feel fine, you know. I mean, if we are living in a lightness of spirit and an open heart, you know, we may be very happy, but because that becomes the normal part of our consciousness, our normal state of being, and so we really don't think of it as being anything different. So we are happy, and we may not really think about happiness in that context. And really, I think that's the goal, is to just be happy. To just walk around and feel that divine energy, that presence of God in our daily life. I think sometimes we think happiness is self-contained, that it's really about us, but really happiness, I think, shows up in a lot of ways in how we interact with the world. There's a university student that decided to do an experiment. And what he decided to do was to walk around campus every day for 30 days and just smile at everybody. Now, I am terrible at just manufacturing a smile. You know, I have to laugh, so I'd have to have a joke book or something to keep myself laughing to do that. But he walked around and he smiled at everybody. Now, even when he didn't feel like smiling, he smiled at everybody. And interestingly enough, that after a week or two of doing that, he naturally started smiling. And because he was smiling, he felt happy. He felt good. And people started, of course, noticing him because he was walking around smiling. And by the end of the month, almost everybody on campus knew who he was. Because here's this happy person, you know. Now, oftentimes something like that comes up and, you know, we do this, you know, because we think it's, you know, or you see that, you know, you kind of shy away and that sort of thing. But after a while, after they got used to being happy, in fact, they would look for him because he made them feel happy. So happiness is something that we can create if we decide it. You know, Abraham Lincoln said, you know, that folks are just about as happy as they make up their minds to be. Even he chimed in terms of the Declaration of Independence and the pursuit of happiness. So it implies that circumstances are not necessarily the determining factor in our happiness, that it's more than a fleeting moment of joy, that it's a sustained experience of living within the understanding of who we are and our place in the world and how the world shows up, that it expresses really and can express in every aspect of our life and in our experience if we wish it to. It's not the flame that consumes the log. Happiness, I sort of see happiness as the embers that glow where the real heat is, where the real energy is. You notice when you roast marshmallows, you don't stick them in the flames, you stick them down on the embers where they brown and they put forth that warmth and that heat.